Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up, y'all? Welcome to another episode on the Porch again with your boy Turé. Special guest today is my homegirl, Angel Ramirez. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thanks for asking, man. Thanks for coming out here and hanging out with us out here on the porch, man.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
I'm
ain't
glad
seen
to
you in a
be
little
here.
bit, so yeah, we get to catch up a little bit, right?
hmm
So right now, we know that what you got new, what's going on. So, all right, before I ask you what you got new that's going on, first, why don't you take a moment to tell the audience who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Angel Ramirez. I have lived in Cedar Rapids for about 7 years now. I came out here from Arizona to be a first generation college student at the time in 2018, and I went to college here in Cedar Rapids. I didn't know what college would be like. Again, my parents didn't attend. And so I was really thrown in and was surprised at how much the Cedar Rapids community really surrounded themselves around me and empowered me to do more and do better and opened up doors for me. And it's because of those opportunities that I still live in Cedar Rapids, that I made my home in Cedar Rapids. And it's what I've spent the last few years trying to bring to the rest of our community in different ways. The way I know Turé is through activism work, through advocacy work. And that's been a space that I really have enjoyed being in and advocating for social justice in Cedar Rapids. So in 2020, I got involved in the Black Lives Matter movement through an organization called Advocates for Social Justice. And we really organized people and to push for a very specific policy that would help alleviate some police brutality, help alleviate racial disparities within the carceral system. And in that work, I got to meet a lot of really amazing community members, including Trey. And so that's been something that I've been doing for the last few years. I started as a volunteer and moved up into an internship, then board member, vice president, and now president of the Advocates for Social Justice 5 years later. I started my own nonprofit here in Cedar Rapids to try to keep young people in Lynn County in public service sectors. So, helping professions, nonprofit world, and really tackle those barriers that come into play when you're trying to be a new person in a new space and helping people and realizing that it's difficult to do that unless you know somebody who knows somebody. The fellowship program is paid. It's meant to pour into people who have the passion but don't quite have the expertise yet to accomplish what they want to do. And that's been a super rewarding program for me to help lead over the last number of years as we've helped keep young people in Lynn County in Cedar Rapids that deeply care about their community and are willing to do the work behind it. So that's a little bit about what I am passionate about, what I care about. I have a wonderful partner who is also deeply involved and have a pit bull rescue. His name is
Shout out to
Yep, shout out
Harold.
to Harold. I have a pit bull rescue named Dakota, who's getting old. We rescued him when he was about 3 years old. And I have a really great community here that I care deeply about. Trey, you're a part of that community, so I appreciate all that you do. And doing this podcast, right? Lifting up the voices of people in our community who are trying to do what's best for our neighbors. So yeah, very happy to be here and share a little bit about my story.
So recently, you had just been working at McKinley School. Did you touch on that at
Yeah,
all?
so I work at McKinley STEAM Academy as a peace facilitator through Kids First Law Center. So Kids First actually is a community partner with the school district. I still work as a peace facilitator. I love that job. I love working with kids. And through that role, I do restorative practices within the Cedar Rapids Community School District. Um, essentially it's a my program is mediation. So when students get into conflict with other students or even with staff, I'm a resource as an alternative to being suspended or removed from the school system when there's conflict that arises. We started as a tool to be preventative in gun violence in our community by teaching kids the skills to resolve conflicts without escalating to violence. So it's really
Right.
incredible. I love the kids that I work with. It's also a testament to how many systemic problems there are in our community that impact our kids and their families every day. I mean, I have kids who have parents who are incarcerated. I have kids who are parents working 5 jobs, right? Trying to pick up anything that they can to put food on the table. And that all impacts how our kids are able to come to school and learn. When you're hungry, you can't learn, right? When you're not getting a lot of sleep because you're trying to take care of your siblings, you can't learn, right? These are all things that is really clear when you're working in the education system, and especially when you work with more vulnerable communities, which is also something that, as you could probably tell, I'm deeply passionate about.
I could definitely tell. I could definitely tell. All right. So now, after all of that, you already know that you are always welcome on the porch anytime, right? You know that, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, what I'm really, really, really excited about having you on the porch with us today about is what you got new going on. Tell us a little bit about what's new going on with Asia.
Yes, I'm very excited to announce that I've been chosen as the Democratic candidate for House District 78, running for the House of Representatives in the state of Iowa. Um, this is a huge moment, right? I'm a progressive candidate. I care deeply about marginalized communities. I care deeply about advocacy. I care about our public education system and protecting affordable ways of living. I care about workers' rights, and the Democratic Party chose me as their candidate. I think it's a big step in the right direction, and I'm very excited that we've had all corners of the community coming to support the campaign, which is very short-lived. It's a special election, which for those who don't know, because there's a lot of barriers to this information, the special election happened because of a domino effect of circumstances. The person who was previously in this seat ended up getting elected into and appointed into the Lynn County Board of Supervisors position after that person had stepped down. So person A stepped down, person B filled in. Shout out to both of those individuals, Ben Rogers and Sammy Sheets. They've done some amazing things in our community. And Sammy Sheets leaving this House district position allowed me to run for it. So the election is very quick. We have about a week and a half left before the election, and we just started campaigning this last week. So April 29th is election day. You can find out if you live in my district, because only the people who live in my district can vote, by looking up Lynn County election tool, and you type in your address and it'll show what house district you live in. So it's fast paced. It'll really depend on voter turnout. So we're knocking doors, we're phone banking, trying to just let as many people know about what this campaign stands for and our mission and our vision for Iowa, so that we
And
can get the
podcasting, all that.
exactly exactly.
All right, let's get into it a little bit. Do you
Hmm.
mind if we go ahead and get into it a little bit?
Yeah, let's
All
do it.
right. Uh, so to start, what kind of policies do you think that you might plan to introduce later on down the line that directly benefit Iowans in like rural areas?
In rural areas, um, first and foremost, we need to fully fund our public schools. Right now, our money is going into private schools that are only for a select group of students, and these are destroying the schools in our rural communities and in neighborhoods like in Cedar Rapids. Class sizes are getting bigger. Teachers are leaving because they're not getting paid well. Collective bargaining is being stripped. So teacher unions and other groups are losing their rights to be able to bargain for better wages, better benefits. I mean, it's kind of tenfold. So I would really like to push for funding our public schools and putting public dollars towards public systems.
Nice. I was gonna ask you about that, but I'm glad you already answered that question. Look at you, girl. You quick on your toes. You gonna do good. You finna do good. uh, so let's talk about small businesses.
Mm.
What measures do you think you might take to support small businesses and local entrepreneurs in your district?
Mm. Yeah, this is something that's super important as we're seeing people leave Iowa to start businesses elsewhere. We need to have incentivization programs that will keep local businesses alive, that'll keep them thriving. We need to be able to support them. As we've seen Republicans do with large corporations, right? We can do that for small businesses.
Right.
And I also think that this is kind of a trickle down effect where when citizens and residents stay in a community, smaller businesses thrive. So we need to make sure that we're approaching this issue in a multifaceted way, right? Supporting people to be able to apply for loans to be able to kickstart their small business, making it accessible, making sure those interest rates are reasonable, right? And then making sure that we're looking at everything from property taxes on those small businesses to how are we keeping people in those communities to maintain that they're starting businesses in Iowa. And then one other piece to that, I think this is kind of a different approach to it, but if we start bolstering our community colleges also with more funding and more resources and start connecting our graduating high schoolers, we'll see more younger business owners, which is also really important to sustain a community.
For sure. Uh, how about affordable housing? How do you plan to tackle the issues of, surrounding affordable housing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, affordable housing is something that is near and dear to my heart. There was a point in time a few years ago where my partner and I were almost houseless. We lived in at College, and the derecho hit. The climate disaster that destroyed various parts of Iowa, and our apartment was not livable at the time. So we had left and was trying to find alternative housing. And then the similar thing happened during COVID, where we needed to find affordable housing to live in Cedar Rapids. When we couldn't go to our school, the school dorms and such were shut down. So we needed a place to live, and it was such a struggle to find affordable housing. And the same thing happened, right? These are also policies that have to do with Section 8 and being able to enforce that landlords need to protect their tenants. And we need to ensure that slumlords are not taking advantage and exploiting lower income income families in their housing situations. We need to make sure that landlords, in my opinion, have to take Section 8 housing, which was stripped by a Republican-led legislature a number of years ago. Those are all things that I plan to advocate
Yeah,
for in Des Moines.
nice, nice. Let's talk a little bit about Trump's executive orders. You mind if we
Mm,
touch on that a little bit? So, Trump's executive orders on immigration have sparked widespread debate all over the country. How do you believe they've affected Iowa's workforce and economy?
hmm. Um, That's a really good question. I think immigrants are the backbone of our agriculture, of our food systems here in America. They're also people, right? They're real hardworking people who have often fled very dangerous circumstances. And I think sometimes the political right can talk about immigrants like they're an other group, right? They other them. But in reality, these are our neighbors who are putting food on our tables often, who are a working part of our economy, but also have kids who need to be educated, who need to have opportunity. Um, and it's really unfortunate because we do see this impacting Iowa. There are deportations happening in Iowa. Just recently, I saw in our community, the Lynn County county attorney is allowing ICE detainees to be in our jails here in Lynn County. And that's personal to me. That's deeply personal as someone, as a granddaughter of Mexican immigrants, um, knowing the challenges that it takes to come here to the country legally. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of resources. So unless we're actively breaking down those barriers, which Iowa is not doing, which we could be doing better at, I think that we need to approach this situation with grace and humility, and ensure that we're not forcing our local police to act as ICE agents, which is also something that the Republican-led legislature is trying to accomplish. We're not participating in illegal removals and kidnappings of people, which we are seeing happening according to the U.S. Supreme Court decision. We need to make sure that we're protecting our neighbors, whether they're despite any status that they have.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
Uh, we know that immigrants they play a vital role in Iowa's economy,
Mhm.
particularly in agriculture.
Mhm.
How do you think that you might approach trying to ensure that their contributions are recognized and supported?
Hmm. It's a really good question. I plan to be a different kind of representative. I want to be known as an advocate still. I want to be known for supporting communities, whether it's in the Capitol or on the streets. And I think that's one of the things that I am really looking forward to doing, is having continued education on what migrants bring to our community and the moral grounds in which we should be protecting our neighbors regardless of their immigration status. Um, I'm kind of looking forward to what some might see as a challenge of going to more rural communities and letting them know and educating them and having a meaningful conversation of what migrants and immigration really means, and hopefully breaking down some of those stereotypes and barriers to accepting our neighbors as is.
For sure, for sure. We know that Trump's executive orders have influenced the Department of Education's priorities, right? How do you think Iowa schools have been affected?
Oh, yeah. Great question again. Working at McKinley, I've seen firsthand what cuts in funding and censorship of true American history, the good, the bad, the ugly, has done to our educators and to our students. I mean, Cedar Rapids Community School District just had to cut 6% of our staff for this next year because of funding cuts. That's significant, right? Those are good teachers that are having to leave. Those are critical resources and support staff that are having to leave. Um, and we're going to see the impact of that on our kids, on their education. We used to be a state that could pride themselves in our public education system, and over these last few years, we've seen a harsh decline because of funding cuts, because of the lack of respect that some legislators have and our governor unfortunately has for public education. And that's why we're seeing kids with lower mental health rates that are struggling with mental health. That's why we're seeing teachers have higher rates of burnout, and we're not retaining them in our education system. And it's all cyclical, right? These things impact each other, and kids who come away less educated because of the lack of resources and lack of opportunity also struggle to be able to come out of poverty coming up. They have less opportunities, so it's more obstacles in place. And in reality, our government doesn't have to be like that. We can actually be supporting our students and supporting our families. We just have to make sure that that's a priority, and that's something that I will absolutely prioritize being in office.
Speaking of Iowa schools, we know that Iowa's public schools face a lot of funding and curriculum challenges, right?
Hmm.
Um, how do you plan to address these issues?
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna answer this in a higher ed conversation as well. My partner works for University of Iowa, and unfortunately, there's already been a huge crackdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and policies and positions that they had at the university. And it's a public institution, right? This is why they were forced to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think there's a lot of fear with some around that term. People are trying to make DEI into a harmful buzzword, but in reality, we're
A
talking
whole
about
boogeyman,
mhm, wheelchair accessibility. We're talking about making sure there's seats at the table for people with different lived experiences to fill gaps in our systems. This is super critical for us to be teaching our students, and to be implementing top down within our positions in higher ed and in public education, K through 12 schools as well.
for sure, for sure. Uh, with STEM education and extracurricular programs often being underfunded,
Hmm.
how will your policies address these gaps?
Mm-hmm. Again, I plan to make sure that teachers are the ones and teacher unions are the ones creating curriculum. It shouldn't be determined by legislators who've had no experience in the education sector at all. So it being led by educators and created by educators who understand everything from the brain science of it all to the history, right? Everything above. They need to be the ones that are in charge of creating curriculum. One thing I plan to do as a legislator is hold town halls with educators, ideally monthly, where I can hear feedback from teachers who are working every day in the schools and being able to use their experiences and their wisdom and their knowledge to inform my policies that I bring forward in the Capitol.
Nice, nice, nice. Hey, so uh, this is let's touch on something else that I believe you would be very passionate about.
Hmm.
Civil rights protections are critical for marginalized communities. What
Yes.
specific measures will you take to strengthen these protections in Iowa?
Absolutely. Um, I will do my best to reestablish gender identity as a protected class under the Iowa Civil Rights Code. Right now, it is now legal for you to be denied housing from a landlord because you're transgender. It is now legal for you to be turned away for food support, for resources because of your gender identity, and that is against every moral bone in my body. um, I want to ensure that other identities and demographics also aren't removed from the civil rights codes, because I can assume that that is likely next on the Republicans' agenda. And so I want to ensure that all identities, all demographics, all marginalized communities are protected under civil rights code.
It feels like once they start discriminating against one group of people, that's
Mhm.
a slippery slope, and it leads us right back to the 40s and 50s.
Right. Well, it sets a precedent, right? And unfortunately, the Republican led legislator has set a precedent of discriminating against people who are different than them. It's absolutely disgusting. It's incomprehensible. I don't know how we can claim that I don't know how Iowa can claim to be quote unquote Iowa nice if we're actively discriminating against groups of people. It just doesn't make any sense to me, right? So absolutely, that's a top priority for me.
All right. diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have faced a lot of pushback, right?
Hmm.
Uh, how will you promote DEI in Iowa despite opposition?
Yeah. I know I touched on this a little bit. It's because this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Um, Diversity, equity, inclusion should be celebrated and
Yeah,
instilled instilled within every institution, especially public entities. And one thing that I plan to do with the privilege that comes with being a representative is working to establish diversity, equity, inclusion practices and positions within public institutions, but also pressuring corporations and organizations who do not have to abide by the current law that's in place, um, to make sure that they're not taking a step back on their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, because we've seen other corporations take a step back, defund their policies, or cut their positions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion when they don't legally have to, and that shows their prioritization to me. And I would encourage everyone to remember that your dollar counts. So the more that you can purchase from locally owned, minority owned, women owned small businesses, the better, because corporations are telling us where their priorities lay. And as a representative, I plan to apply that public pressure with that privilege that I have as a representative.
I read that Target were removing some of their uh, black owned and black distributed
Hmm.
products that they were. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's insane.
It's insane. And I saw that I believe it's the NAACP has called for a boycott. I know my partner and I have been boycotting Target since they announced that cutback in those positions, and having black owned businesses in their stores, and their stocks have plummeted, right? And that's the repercussions of not respecting people across identity groups. Those are the repercussions, and every dollar counts, right? And every withheld dollar counts. So just encourage everyone to think about where
Right.
their money is spent. It's hard to do, but
One of
it's a worthwhile practice.
one of our viewers, they asked a question. I'm gonna read this question to you. I thought this was interesting, and I would like
Mhm.
to give you an opportunity to answer it for our audience.
Yeah.
Uh, the question is: Do the plan to add the Do they plan to add the indigenous people in these diversity plans?
Hmm. Um, I would say that right now there's already a precedent
Love you.
for
I'll call you.
the
Mm,
Republicans to remove the
Love you.
history behind
love you too.
the indigenous people here in America from
Okay.
classes, from education. And so that's something that I absolutely want to make sure is being spoken about, because that's true American history, right? Indigenous people were here first, and it's important for us to acknowledge that. There's currently a law in place that you can't call America or Iowa systemically racist, classist, or sexist. How can you talk about indigenous communities still suffering the repercussions of being oppressed without saying that Iowa has a problem, America has a problem, and we need to address it in these ways, right? It's hard to address problems if you can't name the problems. And what this legislator and governor is trying to do is make it so we can't talk about the problem. But you can rest assured, I'm going to stand 10 toes down and speaking about the problem and doing my best to advocate for solutions.
Nice,
Good
nice.
question, though.
Uh, Education reform has been one of Governor Reynolds' focuses of her administration. Uh, what is your critique of her policies, and how would yours differ?
Hmm. I believe Governor Reynolds' idea of protecting education is only working for a select few. And it's certainly leaving a lot of communities behind. Again, we've kind of discussed some of these elements of funding our public education systems, which makes sure that teachers are able to have smaller class sizes, which means more time with your kids, right? It means more manageable and individualized education plans. So fully funding our schools, she's removing public dollars from public schools and putting them into private schools that do not have the same protections in place for students with disabilities, students with intellectual disabilities and physical, students with different needs and backgrounds. So that's where I differentiate. I believe that we need equal opportunities in order to get equal outcomes. We need equity, and that's not being instilled right now with the current administration.
Being somebody that is not only from a marginalized community, but you out here with us on the daily. At least
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week, right? At least 5 days a week, at least Monday through Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you believe that Governor Reynolds has adequately addressed uh, the concerns of the marginalized communities who feel overlooked?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Governor Reynolds is so disconnected from the everyday Iowan. She is disconnected from the communities that are struggling, communities like mine and communities like yours. And it is disheartening that the person in charge of writing the laws in place, only 150 people write the laws that impact every single person in this state, and she signs off on it. And to have those people be so disconnected from the everyday experience of our families here is almost dystopian. We need people that understand the lived experiences that we have every day. We need people who understand what challenges are there and what works well so that we can continue pouring support into what works well in our communities. And the having someone who's only connected to the wealthy and connected to the affluent is not going to serve uh, everyday Iowans at all.
For sure, definitely. Iowa faces numerous challenges from climate change to healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the most pressing issue, and how will you address it?
Hmm. That's a difficult question for me. And I know that's not a perfect answer, but it's difficult because I see everything as interconnected. I see um, how we need to instill environmental protections and climate protections to make sure we have clean air, soil, and water, because that influences our health rates, right? And that also influences how our children grow up and how uh, people can't afford adequate health care because they're having to pay for cancer treatment that they got from terrible air and water and soil quality. And then I also see how that goes back to protecting workers and making sure that people are getting unionized to build in protections for their wages and their benefits and their job security. Everything is really interconnected for me. And what it really boils down to is I see these things as basic human rights. I see the ability to live, to put food on your table, to have housing and transportation and a good education as basic human rights. And that's really what this campaign is all about. How do we bolster supports for those human rights that we all deserve, regardless of where we came from and our background?
For sure, for sure. Uh, Speaking of healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
someone from the Republican Party has been making some pretty eyebrow raising remarks concerning healthcare and people
Mm-hmm.
overusing healthcare. And I don't understand how someone can overuse healthcare. If I'm sick, I'm sick. I need to go see a doctor so that I
Right.
can live as long as you live, right? Uh, what is your stance on privatized healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, how do you plan to maybe reconcile that with people who really
Mm-hmm.
can't afford privatized healthcare?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First and foremost, I would reaffirm that healthcare is a human right. Um, and I see it all the time. My mom hasn't scheduled an appointment that she's needed for probably 10 years, a routine checkup, because of the price tag. I was talking to someone on the phone the other day who got into an accident and couldn't take the ambulance because he was afraid of the price tag. Right. I know people who have been have had a cough or bronchitis for weeks and they can't go to the emergency room even though it's impacting their everyday life. They're not able to do their job, go to their work because of the price tag. And that is not normal, and that should not be normalized. We should all have access to healthcare because that is a critical component to living, right? And in other countries, they do this. They have public healthcare systems. You can still choose your own doctor, because I know that was really important to me, to have a doctor that I really liked, that I felt like listened to me. That was especially important to me as a woman of color, to have a doctor that I really connected with. And that's often a criticism of public health care, that you can't choose your doctor, and that's just not true in other places. And I think that we've kind of been stuck as an American public in this idea that healthcare has to be privatized. But in reality, that's making our costs go up. It's making our medication costs go up. To give birth, it's like $10,000 or plus, like more. They charge you to hold your baby. I mean, these are things that should not be normalized, and that we really need to talk about as a working class. Because frankly, it's the people who are privileged enough to be able to afford every visit to the doctor that they need that are telling other people, the working class, that we
You're
shouldn't
going
be
to the
going to
doctor
the
too
doctor.
much.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So they're removed. They don't understand the struggle. And that's exactly why we need to ensure that there's increased access to affordable and quality health care for Iowans, but across America.
For sure. For sure. Iowans often express frustration about slow progress on major issues. Uh, Either slow progress on major issues, or individuals who start out as change makers, they
Mm-hmm.
tend to lose their way. Uh, how do you how what's your approach going to be so that you can accelerate meaningful change
Mm-hmm.
and you can stay focused and not become a part of the machine?
Yes, I think this is such a critical question to ask. Um, I'll be honest, there have been people who have already reached out to this campaign and told me to water my message down, that I'm too progressive. And I've told them that's gotten us nowhere, right? That's A, gotten us nowhere. But B, that's actively hurting people and disconnecting people from the Democratic Party and the movement towards progress. So it's really important to me that I stick to my values. It's really important to me that um, any person walking on the street can pull me aside and I have the same answers for different people because I have the same convictions. And I truly believe this. And um, I think it helps that I've had a track record of advocacy and activism. And I want that to be proof that I am going to live up to my word regardless of the space that I'm in. Um, and that's also something that I plan to have these types of conversations and check-ins with community members to make sure that I'm not stepping away from the commitments that I've made to my community. That's really the most important thing to me. And people are excited about this campaign. People are excited about someone being unapologetically for the people, right? And that's what we need. This moment with the federal administration, with what Iowa has done over the last few years, we need human-centered, bold, unapologetic people in power who put people first. And that is exactly the campaign that I'm running, and that's exactly the type of person that I am trying to be.
For sure.
Yeah.
Uh, Give me a second. I lost my my list of questions.
You got some good questions there.
I caught myself doing a little bit of homework first, man.
When are you running for office next? Oh, you cut off a little bit. I don't know if that's just for me. Hmm. Okay, I cannot hear you. I'm wondering if one of our audience members can tell us if it's on my end or if it's something else. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear. I just sent you a quick text, Turé.
Ah,
Oh, I hear
can you hear
something.
me now?
Yes, I can.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, great. We're back up and running.
Back up and running. Back up and running. All right. Is there anything that you got any messages that you want to share with our viewers right now?
Mm. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I think this is a moment where we can show the public and the legislators that are running the state that we are going to stand for human centered progressive policies and candidates. This is a moment where we can show that in the face of discrimination and hatred, frankly, and people attacking diversity, equity, inclusion, that we will elect the first Latina in the Iowa House. And that is something that is long overdue, but I am very proud to be that person, to be the face of this movement for progressivism and helping everyday people in Iowa. I've been reached out to by so many people in our community beyond my district that have thanked me for running, and I really appreciate those thoughts, those messages, that support. And also, I should not be, it shouldn't stop at me, right? It should be the start of something new, and it should be the start of a movement that'll help everyday Iowans moving forward, where we can continue to put up people who will actually support our systems and fund our schools. And I was saying to some folks the other day, I want to lead with what Iowa can be, not just talk about what we're fighting against. I think it's important to talk about what we're fighting against, but it's also important to lead with a vision of what Iowa can do and be. And the reality is that we can achieve in Iowa where our climate is healing, our schools are funded, our workers are protected, our healthcare system is working, diversity, equity, and inclusion is celebrated, and our community is thriving. And I will do my best to make that happen here in this state. And then if you're interested in getting involved, we have a campaign office off of 4th Avenue. We're doing some canvas launches where you can help knock doors and call people in our community to let them know about me as a candidate. The most important thing is to turn out to vote on April 29th. You can early vote starting Monday, April 21st at the county auditor's office at the Gene Oxley building here in Cedar Rapids. And yeah, just make your voice heard, make your voice known. Oh, lost him.
There you go.
There you go. I just ended with make
Okay,
your voice
you
heard.
was last thing I heard, you was giving the address to the local your headquarters.
Yeah, we're off of 4th Avenue, and we're doing some canvas launches so people can volunteer to door knock and text people and call people to let them know about the campaign. And you can get involved by checking out our Facebook page, Ramirez for Iowa. Shout out our little sign made from a local artist. Um,
For
so
sure.
you can get involved, check out our Facebook page. We would love your support and love any person's help that can afford to. So really looking forward to what this campaign can do, really looking forward to getting in the seat and getting to work. Thanks for your time.
Looking forward to having you, man. Thank you for coming and
Yeah.
hanging out with us, Ramirez. This is going to be epic. This is definitely going to be epic. You know what I'm saying? Uh, I'm really excited, man, and I'm looking forward to having you come back and explain to
Mm-hmm.
us how was it. You know what I'm saying? How you felt winning when they said, you know what I'm saying? And the new world heavyweight champion is.
Yes, yes. I'm very much looking forward to those days.
Thanks again for coming out, man. I really appreciate your time. Um, I will definitely be reaching out to see how I can help out. Um, and again, looking forward to having you on the show and celebrating you being HD 78.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and to everyone listening.
For sure. Have a good one.
Bye.